Welcome back. Today we're taking a look at the Collider Delay plus Reverb pedal from Source Audio. Brand new on the market. It's only been out a few weeks at this time, which is October 2019. Keep that in context when I'm talking about any features. If they've changed, well, they've changed since October 2019. We're going to do an overview of this pedal today with a view towards using it with synthesizers and keyboards, which is something I haven't seen on a YouTube review yet. So hopefully there'll be some value of people that are interested in the kinds of things that I do on my channel. Just for purposes of explaining what's going on, we are trying to do some direct audio today to avoid that dreaded iPhone audio issue. So the Prophet Rev2 that we're using here is playing directly into a mixer which is connected directly to the iPhone. We've got direct audio. I'm using just a simple sort of a brassy pad sound. Nothing too fancy about it. That's the direct signal from the Rev2. No internal effects being used unless I mention them during the video. So just a simple pad sound with aftertouch opening up the cutoff frequency of the filter a little bit for expression. So if I press harder, you'll get that happening. Also, I've got a vibrato, a pitch change, LFO type thing happening here on the wheel. So, and of course, standard pitch change works as well. So anything that you hear that's expressive stuff like that, that's coming from the synthesizer itself and not from the effect. I think that's important to note when you're showing a product off like this, and I'm going to be zeroing right in on the Collider itself and that panel for the majority of this overview. The Collider is sort of a combination of two very popular products made by Source Audio. There is the Nemesis Dual Delay and the Ventris Dual Reverb. If you look around on YouTube or the internet, you'll see that both of those devices are considered very high quality. They are very well regarded. The Ventris Reverb is often compared to the Strymon Big Sky, and I would say it compares very favorably. You look out there and the people that are doing the demonstrations and comparing those two, they may go back and forth as to which one they think is the best one, and so that's when you know it's really down to a matter of personal opinion. The Collider is sort of like we took the Nemesis and the Ventris and we mashed them or collided them together, and we kept the best features of both. And so what Source Audio did was they said, well, we're going to kind of give you the most popular digital delay, the most popular delay models, because not all of them are modeled after digital, and the most popular reverb models, and we're going to stick them together in one box. We're going to keep the same simplified control panel, and these controls are very well marked for what they do in green for the delay mode or in yellow for the reverb mode. When the control is not specifically marked with a green or a yellow label, they will do different things. The tone control, for instance, will typically be a simple high-low kind of tone control. In other cases, it will be just the treble control. The Control 1 and the Control 2, those have various features, usually things like modulation depth or various things having to do with what kind of delay or reverb you've got. They ship it with a handy little card that tells you what all of those things are so you can keep them by your side. I'm probably going to take that little card and turn it into a sticker that'll be pasted on the side of the Prophet Rev2 that I've got here, since I'll likely be using it with this instrument from now on. One important control is you get to select which part of the box you're affecting with these knobs. You can flip it to delay, in which case all of these controls are affecting the delay side of the pedal. You flip it to reverb, and now this is controlling the reverb side of the house, so to speak. If you're afraid of knocking those knobs around during a performance, you can stick that in the middle, and now the panel won't do anything, except that the select buttons for the presets still work. We can click through those. Out of the box, it has a total of 4 different preset locations that you can use, and you can program these directly from the front panel of the unit. I have used a button on the back here, which is called a control button, and you can enable a mode where you can also store up to an additional 4 presets, and they are labeled by using combinations of the front panel LEDs. Okay, so total of 8 presets that are accessible from the front panel. You also have up to 128 presets addressable by MIDI, and there's a pretty simple way that you go about sending it a MIDI command. There's a a MIDI input jack here and a MIDI throughput jack here, so this would integrate very well with a synthesizer or a MIDI controller. You can send it a command telling it, I'm going to store this preset on this particular channel, store it on this particular preset, store it on that preset, and the next time you call up that MIDI program change, that's what it's going to go to. So you can very quickly, with the synthesizer, go through and line up your programs in the synthesizer to your presets on the collider, and it's almost like it's a completely integrated unit right now. The mix control will generally control the wet or the dry signal. There is also, by hitting the control button back here, the ability to use this control as an output gain so that you can match this to the input gain of your soundboard, whether you're running a board at plus 4 dB, 0 dB, negative 10 dB. The range is fairly significant. You can really, put your gain structure together correctly. So enough of me talking. Let's play some things. I've got the Prophet Rev2 set up down here. I showed you how that's set up. I'm going to go ahead and just turn on a basic digital delay, and we'll set a fair amount of delay. A little bit of feedback. We'll put the tone control here. We're going to take Control 1 and Control 2 down for a second, and that's for something that I'm going to show you in a bit. And just so a basic digital delay. You do have to enable it. It's a foot pedal, right? Maybe a little more volume is needed. That delay time goes up to quite a large value. And let's stop that going. If you do turn the feedback up in pretty typical manner for a delay of this kind, the delays will happen forever. And as you learned, and as is typical for this kind of a thing, if feedback's all the way up, the delays will actually grow in volume to the point where you'll start getting that distortion. So we'll back that off a little bit. Well, maybe we'll take this to a little bit more typical. Sorry. Really a nice sounding digital delay. If we put this into our analog mode, it acts a lot more like an analog delay, like a traditional bucket brigade. And so just as a bucket brigade does, the highs are kind of rolled off on each successive delay. Put it into the tape mode, and now we've got kind of a warm, saturated tape delay. A couple of things, I'm not sure if they're apparent or not. I'm going to set the delay time up quite a bit here so that maybe it's a little bit more obvious. You should be hearing a back and forth stereo effect out of that tape delay. And the same with the analog. It is kind of a back and forth in the stereo field kind of thing. I hope YouTube audio compression does not mess that up for you, because that's a very important part of this device, is it does kind of stereoize the input. Even if you're putting a stereo input from a keyboard or something like that, or even if it's a mono input from a guitar or an older analog synthesizer with maybe a mono output, you do get kind of there's a stereo field that happens when you're using these delays. Now, something I did want to show is that on most of the delay models, if you turn down the delay all the way and the feedback down till it's almost nothing, this is pretty typical, if you were paying attention in effects pedal class, that a delay, when you turn down the delay quite a bit and the feedback quite a bit and you give it some modulation, suddenly it turns into a different kind of a pedal. And you'll notice there, depending upon the mix, there's the dry signal, there's the wet signal. I mix them together, And now I've got this beautiful stereo chorus. And it does sound differently whether you go to tape, analog, or digital. You can get quite a number of different great chorus effects out of this. Better choruses than what I think you can get in the effects unit of the Rev2, which is part of the reason why this is going to probably live on my Rev2 from now on. So that's kind of the overview of the delay section. There's some things you can do in here where you can control it over MIDI or by tapping the pedal to be able to have the delays go to subdivisions of whatever kind of a tempo you're playing in. That's a really popular thing for guitarists to do. You can put that to good effect as well with synthesizers. If you want to kind of see how that thing sounds, I strongly suggest you look up on YouTube a guy by the name of Kebu, that's Kebu. He regularly does videos, performance videos, and takes great advantage of the idea of using delays to form this this really cascading kind of effect with synthesizers. It's a great thing. We'll turn off the delay section for a second and we'll go to the reverb section. I'll flip this over here. So now all of these controls are controlling the reverb section where, again, if they're on the delay section, now they're controlling the delay. Okay, just kind of demonstrating that real quick. So let's go to a basic room reverb right off the bat. Set our mix at a good amount. Let's put our controls all the way down because I'm not sure off the hand what they do. Turn on the reverb. And that's a room reverb with maybe mid-level feedback. With no feedback at all. It's like, wow, we're in a really small room now. You turn the feedback way up. We're in a really large room. That's going to go on forever. In the reverb mode, the delay control is a pre-delay for the reverb. So if I set this reverb so that it's kind of a fairly decent reverb, but I put the pre-control all the way up, watch what happens. So you can get the pre-control to determine how long of a delay you have until that reverb effect starts coming in. And that can be quite handy. Moving right along, we've got a hall control. So a hall model. So, of course, a hall type reverb, which I guess you'd think of as sort of a bigger room. If you do want to, turning up the feedback, you can get reverbs that go on forever. So I'm just going to very briefly hit the keyboard and listen to how long the tail on this reverb is and how beautiful and smooth it is. That tail just goes on forever and ever. And that brings up a kind of a little side feature here. If I click this reverb off, you'll notice that the reverb abruptly turns off. There's a mode you can put it in by the use of this back panel control button that you can enable where when you hit the reverb and it's on, and then you have that reverb tail happening, if you turn the reverb off, that means that anything new you play will not be affected by the reverb, but that reverb tail will still go on, and that's kind of a cool thing if you're doing like a transition from one part of your music to another. So you can get that long reverb tail, sort of a crossfade as you go into the next thing. There's also a feature here where if you hold down the reverb pedal while you're playing, it will hold that reverb indefinitely while not applying the reverb to anything new you play. So as an example, if I were to just, very quickly hit and release a sound on the keyboard. Let's turn this down to a much less feedback so you can hear that tail decay naturally. So that's just me hitting the keyboard and letting up. If I hit the keyboard and then hold down this pedal, the button's going to blink and that's going to tell me that I am holding that reverb. Watch how this happens. As long as I hold that button down, that reverb is going to continue. It doesn't apply any reverb to any new notes that I play on the instrument that's input, so I can solo over the top of it. And that reverb is not applied to what I am playing on the keyboard while that button is held down. It's simply holding that reverb from before. That, incidentally, is something that is available under MIDI control. So if you wanted to, on a controller or a switch on the front of a keyboard or a controller, you wanted to assign that MIDI control to that, you could control that with a foot pedal, you can control that with a front panel button on a controller, and that can be an important performance aspect of using a reverb like this. Moving right along, let's go back to the room control. I did want to show you the room model, because the room model does offer modulation. So we're going to turn this on. It's a little subtle, and I'm not sure you're going to hear that unless you're listening through headphones, but it really does kind of bring in kind of a stereo modulation, kind of a warbly thing. It's almost like there's a little bit of a chorus or a univibe type effect going on along with the room control. In the hall mode, control number 2 controls the size of the hall. So we're going to control the size of the hall, or we're going to make that hall really small. Notice the difference. So you can see pretty plainly how there's an interplay between the feedback control, the hall size control here, and the use of that, infinite hold reverb feature that you can use here. That those things together, that could be really powerful in the context of something like an ambient performance or doing film music or something like that. Moving along to the true spring, this sounds like a spring reverb. It's got that spring thing that if you want to have it, that's great. Plate reverbs. And by the way, on the spring, control number 2 controls the length of the spring. On plate, it controls the size of the plate. On the shimmer reverb, which we're going to go to, everybody wants to hear the shimmer reverb. Let's just do it. It will control the amount of regeneration that the shimmer does, which is how many times it'll feed back that pitch change back into the reverb to create that shimmer effect. So if we go extreme, man, that can really do quite a bit of cool things. And these other controls do things as well. We can set our pre-delay up on that. And so notice by putting that in there, we don't get that immediate shimmer, so the attack portion of the sound comes through a lot more clearly than if we have that shimmer happen right away. Little subtle things you can do with the collider that really pay off in big ways. And again, for shimmer, if we turn the feedback up all the way and we turn regeneration up all the way, look what happens. I'm just going to let that go because it's pretty cool that you can get that much of a shimmer effect out of a pedal like this. And if I want to do something a little less extreme but still useful, I can use the shimmer effect along with this infinite hold feature. I'm not playing anymore, but now I can go, and since that shimmer is being held, I can go and play other things on the keyboard. So that's pretty cool. Moving on, we get something called the E-dome, which is kind of this interesting cavernous reverb they've got. It's like you're in this huge room, and you can apply modulation to that as well. So not so much modulation, quite a lot of modulation. And that is doing stereo things in my ear that are really, really yummy right now. You've also got a swell reverb, and the way that works is they're not saying that it's swell, that it's a great reverb. They're saying that it adds a swelling effect. One of the most interesting features of this pedal, we're just doing an overview today, is we do have two effects engines. So if we do want to combine delay with reverb, easy enough to do, we could put a chorus type setting on the delay ahead of the reverb and get some great effects that way. But it kind of goes beyond that. You'll notice that when I put it in reverb mode, that control will only select these reverb sides of the pedal. When I put it in delay mode, it'll only select these delay sides of the pedal. You can put this thing in something called unlock mode, and unlock mode works like this. You hold down that button on the back, and now these controls will go over the full range of what's available. So if I want to take a reverse oil can delay and flip over to what would ordinarily be the reverb side of the house, I can now, by hitting this button, select a dual delay engine. So I can combine an oil can with a digital delay. Let's put them both together. And you can see how I can get into some pretty extreme territory there. I can also do things like, say, we'll take the delay and we'll turn that into a room. We'll take the reverb. We'll take the reverb side, what would traditionally be the reverb side, and now we've got a room reverb happening with the E-dome or the shimmer. So I potentially have a dual delay pedal or a dual reverb pedal if I want to use that, and yes, those do store as presets. Or I can have a dual reverb or a dual delay pedal, or I can do something like have a chorus feeding into a delay, or a delay feeding into a chorus, or a shimmer reverb feeding into a delay. You can kind of reverse the order of things by the way you set these controls up. Really, really handy. There are a number of controls that are also available that are not on the front panel that are available for deep editing, and you can access those either by connecting to a USB port that's on the back of the unit, connecting that to a PC or a Mac, and there's a downloadable app that you can use to get into all kinds of controls and really do a fine level of detail over a dozen or so different parameters, maybe more than that, on both sides of this pedal. There is a forthcoming iPhone app that will allow you to do the same things. It also allows you to download presets for the box that other users have created, and there's quite a few of those that are already being created for the Collider. So if you don't want to roll your own, you can download stuff that other people have done. In addition, all of these controls, those are also capable of being addressed by MIDI. So every single one of those controls is directly addressable by a MIDI control change number. So you can easily set up a controller so that it would give you access to every single control in the unit. Very fine level of control there going on. And with a little bit of creativity, I kind of teased this a little bit in talking to the people at Source Audio. I didn't really tell them what I was talking about. But if you think about it, since every parameter of this device is available over MIDI, and you can store those MIDI control changes along with other information in your DAW or some MIDI controllers, theoretically, this device is not limited to 128 presets. It's as many presets as you want it to be because you can send that control information over MIDI. That way, when you call up a song in your DAW, it sends that information directly, and you don't have to worry about what mode it's in or whether you save that preset on the box or not. Same thing for your live show. If you have that information stored in a controller or your sequencer, those control changes will happen when you call up that song. You don't need to worry about what condition the box is in or what presets are on there. It just plain does the control for you. That's really powerful. It also allows you some things that I'm going to be showing off in the future, which is how you can use MIDI control change messages to do some really dynamic performance control type stuff with this. The folks at Source Audio do make available a pedal that plugs in the back, as well as a thing called the hot hands, and these can control various aspects and parameters of this for performance control, and those are pretty cool. But we can take this far beyond simply the use of an expression pedal or a little hand-mounted ring thing that you do. We can get pretty wild with this, and we can have the collider react to aftertouch. We can have it react to moving a wheel or a slider or a button on a MIDI controller, and take this into some really wide territory where, dare I say it, no guitar player can enter. And so that's kind of what's exciting to me about this. Again, it is the Collider. It is a dual effects engine, delay, and reverb, a greatest hits box available from Source Audio. I just got this thing. I haven't even gotten into it all the way. This is just an overview video today, and boy, do I love what it's doing for me so far. It is some pretty cool stuff. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.